There's a spa called Bali Heritage Reflexology and Spa in Jakarta, Indonesia that uses pythons placed on a customer's body as a form of massage treatment. The Neanderthal's brain was 10% bigger than ours, the Homo sapiens, but they were not as intellectual as us. This is because their brains were more devoted to vision, where more of ours is devoted to reasoning, decision-making, and social interaction. In 2005, a man named Ronald McDonald robbed a Wendy's in Manchester, England. When you get blackout drunk, you don't actually forget anything because your brain wasn't recording in the first place. Humans can have anywhere from 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day, with 80% of these thoughts being negative. Before Scar got the scar on his face in The Lion King, his name was Taka, which means garbage in Swahili. Adam Rayner, an Australian man, is the only person in medical history to have been classified as both a dwarf and a giant in his lifetime. He stood at 3.8 feet 17 meters on his 21st birthday and was classified as a dwarf, but by the time he died at the age of 51, stood at 7 foot 6'2", 34 meters tall due to a growth spurt. Despite having billions of dollars and being one of the wealthiest businessmen in the world, Ikea founder Ingvar Kamprad is notoriously cheap. He lives in a small home, eats at Ikea, takes the bus, and only flies economy class. The most successful interrogator of World War II was Hans Scharf, who instead of using torture, would befriend the prisoner. He would gain their trust by taking them to a cinema on camp and sharing a coffee or tea with them. In 2014, a competitive eater named Molly Schuyler, who weighs only 126 pounds 57 kg, won 4 eating contests in only 3 days. She ate a total of 363 chicken wings, 59 pancakes, 5 pounds of bacon, and 5 pounds of barbecued meat. When the silk of a spider is stored in its body, it's actually liquid and only hardens and becomes solid when it leaves the spider's glands and comes into contact with the air. Jesse James, a notorious outlaw from the 1800s who once gave a widow who housed him enough money to pay off her debt collector and then robbed the debt collector as the man left the widow's home. In 1967, a magazine called Berkeley Barb published a fake story about extracting hallucinogenic chemical from bananas to raise moral questions about banning drugs. Unfortunately, people didn't realize it was a hoax and began smoking banana peels to try and get high. Cameron Diaz and Snoop Dogg both went to school together. Cameron even bought some weed off of Snoop once. Apples, peaches, and raspberries are all members of the Rose family. The Cookie Monster revealed in 2004 during a song that before he started eating cookies and became known as the Cookie Monster, he was called Sid. Created in Germany, Eslac is the world's first edible spray paint that comes in gold, silver, red, and blue. 2,520 is the smallest number that can be divided by all numbers between 1 and 10. Buttermilk contains 0 butter. France is the only country in Europe to be completely self-sufficient in basic food production. In the Victorian era, they had special tea cups that protected your mustache from getting dunked in your tea. Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of the famous games Mario, Zelda, and Donkey Kong, was banned from riding a bicycle. This is because he became so valuable to Nintendo that they didn't want to risk anything happening to him, forcing him to drive a car instead. There is a condition called math anxiety which causes people to perform poorly in mathematics, not because they're ungifted in math, but because the condition causes their brain to enter such a state where they simply cannot perform math. There's a travel agency in Tokyo called Unijai Travel. The 4 fee will take your stuffed animal on vacation around the world. In 2008, a businessman from Abu Dhabi spent $14.3 million at an auction to buy a license plate labeled 1, making it the world's most expensive license plate. You can tell identical twin babies apart by their navels, since the navel is a scar and isn't caused by genetics. The world's deepest, darkest, oldest, and quietest motel room is 70 meters underground, at Grand Canyon Caverns in a 65-million-year-old cave. A galactic year, also known as a cosmic year, is the duration of a complete rotation of the Milky Way, which is approximately 200 million terrestrial years. In 2008, the Japanese created a silicon toy called Mugen Pooty Pooty, designed to mimic the sensation of popping bubble wrap for an infinite number of times. 5-time Tour de France winner, Miguel Indurain, had a resting heart rate of just 28 beats per minute. The average person has a resting heart rate of about 60 beats per minute. Dalmatians used to run alongside horse-drawn fire trucks, acting as a barking siren to clear crowds. This is the reason for their positive reputation with firefighters. In 1944, British submitted a full plan to kill Hitler during one of his routine, solitary walks. It was never carried out because Hitler was such a poor strategist that British realized his replacement could do a better job of defending from the Allies if he died. In 2002, USA passed a law allowing it to invade Netherlands to prevent US military personnel to be tried by the International Criminal Court. In California and 13 other states, if injured by a drug dealer, the victim of harm and their employer may sue the drug dealer for the costs of medical rehabilitation and treatment. Up until the 1960s, poor Swiss children were auctioned to farmers to be used as a source of cheap labor. Nazis formed a plan in 1939 to counterfeit the British pound to cause hyperinflation. Using a German concentration camp, they manufactured 132 million GBP, which is the equivalent of 6-7 billion modern-day pounds. They partially succeeded. Volkswagen was sued by Czechoslovakian car maker Tatra because the original Beetle was so similar to the Tatra T97. After Germany invaded Czechoslovakia in 1938, the lawsuit was cancelled by the Nazis. An artist named Pierre Berceau exhibited a series of paintings in 1964 to critical acclaim. However, Pierre Berceau was, in fact, a chimpanzee. Even after the hoax was revealed, a critic declared that the chimp's painting was still the best in the exhibition. J.K. Rowling told Alan Rickman the end to Snape's story arc before he ever appeared on camera as Snape in the Harry Potter movies. As a result, he often argued with directors about knowing something that they didn't. 5,000 years ago, the Chinese created nail polish and used it to symbolize wealth and power among the elite. It was forbidden among the general population to use them. Reports exist of commoners sentenced to die for wearing it. In the Nigerian version of Sesame Street, the blue monster with a food obsession isn't obsessed with cookies, but with yams. A Chernobyl fireman who claimed they didn't know that the Chernobyl meltdown flames were radioactive, 20 years later said, "Of course we knew. If we had followed regulations, we would never have gone near the reactor. It was a moral obligation, our duty. We were like the kamikaze." Scientist Nikola Tesla drank whiskey every day because he thought it would make him live to 150. Seat cushions at the Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles are designed to have the same absorption properties as the average person, so that the hall has the same acoustics when empty or full, an advantage for musicians, who usually rehearse in an empty hall. A study has found that Asian men are found to be less attractive than men of other races. Even Asian women rated men of other races as more attractive than Asian men. Mussolini was expelled from school when he was 10 for stabbing a classmate. He did the same thing at his next school. The name of Yoda's race and his home world are never mentioned in any film, book, or media. He is officially said to be of a species unknown. The word glia comes from the Greek word meaning glue. Sharks can detect water movement through a series of pit organs, the lateral line system located under their skin. Percentage of university students who are dissatisfied with their sleep, 24% in 1978, 53% in 1988, 71% in 2000. The complete inability to taste is called ageusia and the reduced ability to taste is called hypogeusia. Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone in 1876, suffered from headaches, probably migraines that lasted hours to days. The average duration of a single blink is 0.1-0.4 seconds. Oilbirds have the highest density of rod receptors, 1 million rods per square millimeter of any vertebrate eye. The highest density of rod receptors in humans is only 175,000 per square millimeter. The word alcohol comes from the Arabic el and kol. Kol is a powder that was used to paint eyebrows.